Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Cooper. I am the project manager for special assessment districts for the City of Oxnard. I really appreciate you giving your time tonight to be a part of this community outreach meeting for ReNew Oxnard for California Lighthouse and Pacific Breeze. And tonight we have with us Danielle Wood and Pablo Perez from CivicMic, and they're going to be running this meeting tonight. So thank you all for being here again. And Danielle, take it away.
Thank you, Jerry. I am Danielle Wood with CivicMic, and I know that we've talked to some of you on the phone and through email. See some familiar names here, and I'm glad that you guys could join us tonight. We would like to see a much larger group, so we'll talk about how we can get there. We'll go over that tonight. High participation is key to success for us. So we will be leaning on some of you to help us to get more of your community involved. For those of you that attended the first meeting, you may have heard some of this before, so I will try and go quickly, but the city hired CivicMic to assist them with public engagement efforts to help communities and organizations work together to create and realize sustainable visions for your community. Many of you are signed up on civicmic.com, and you knew about this meeting prior to receiving a postcard or maybe an email from your HOA. If you are not signed up, please visit civicmic.com/Oxnard. Scroll to the bottom. You can see on the screen here, for those of you that are on the phone, you can select the neighborhood that you're in, the community, and then add your email address, contact information, and subscribe. That way, anytime we put new information on the website, you'll receive an email saying that there's been an update, and that way we can notify you of any meetings, surveys, things like that as well. So if you haven't done that, please subscribe. Also, once you've done that, please go to the website and look in the news by neighborhood. We have populated the website with a lot of information that's very useful to you. I mean, it'll take a long time to go through it, but it will really help you understand how we got here, what has happened over the years. We have budget information. We have information about the meetings we've already held, what this program is going to look like, what your improvements look like. There's budget information there on the screen. So please take some time and go through this and make yourself familiar with what's here. A lot of questions you may have can be answered in this section. If you don't get your questions answered tonight, please feel free to reach out to Pablo or myself. You can go through the website, or you can call us at 1-800-676-7516, and we will answer any questions that you have that come up. If you have to jump off the call early tonight, the meeting will be posted on the website. If you're signed up, you'll receive a notification once it's posted. Give us a couple days to do that, but I guess maybe Monday, probably early next week, maybe earlier if we can get to it. But that will be out there, so you can go through it and listen to it again and write down any additional notes or questions you may have. So with meetings like this, we like to keep everyone on mute so we can hear the presentation. Sometimes if you click off mute and there's background noise, you won't be able to hear the speaker. Others won't be able to hear the speaker. So if you notice that you keep getting put on mute, that's intentional. We're trying to keep everyone quiet enough so you can hear the presentation. Also, we are hoping to have as many participants as possible. And with that, we hope to have various demographics and diverse values that we would like to hear what priorities each of you have. So we are very interested in learning what your priorities are, and we will shield you from any personal attacks or slander. If someone is making personal attacks, they'll be moved to a private meeting room by the moderator, and once they're allowed to return after they've cooled down, if that continues, they'll be removed from the meeting. So we don't think that that will happen, but we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of the process. Also, this meeting is really intended to focus on moving forward. We know there's a lot of history with the city, and for many of you have lived here a long time, and we are hoping that your community can come together and look for ways to move forward and continue to improve your community through various methods that we'll discuss tonight. So with that being said, I will let Pablo move on to the community-specific workshop portion of this meeting. Pablo?
Very good. Let me get something on the screen here. Welcome, everybody. I thank you all for taking the time to participate in this meeting, and I know it takes time and effort. We appreciate that. I think we can all safely agree that the public improvements, the landscaping, the sidewalks, the trees, both in the interior and the exterior of the neighborhoods, is in much need of repair and a higher level of ongoing maintenance. Then that's why we're here today. We actually believe that there's an opportunity here to turn these areas around in Oxnard for the better. We believe that by doing so, we can improve the lives of many residents in the city, and we can be a part of a success story that we can then replicate through other communities in the city. So how do we accomplish this? First, we engage you and inform you about the issues. We are your advocate for you and the city, and together we're going to create some viable solutions. Solutions may vary from community to community. If you were at the intro meeting, I mentioned a lot of possibilities. That is sort of the long list of things that can happen, but each community is different. Each group is different. So it really depends on what assets you have and how much involvement you want to have. For some communities, they may want to be very involved where they volunteer to do work, trash pickup or replanting. Others may prefer to have an HOA take over the work versus a city, or maybe a split, right? Others may just want to rely heavily on the city to manage and perform the work. Regardless of the solution, which will really come from you, the residents participating in this process, it has to result in a better partnership between the city and the citizens. In my opinion, the best chance for a viable solution requires that it be managed by the Special Districts Division. Jerry Cooper is here, and many of you may know her. This is a small group of city employees that are only dedicated to the implementation of these solutions and the maintenance assessment district work, as well as the Melrose work. So it's not spread out to the city, but rather a small group of employees. And later on in the presentation, I will show you the org chart for that division. And also it requires that the residents be represented by a new to be created citizens committee. We really need a small group of residents to work with the city, the Special Districts Division, on an ongoing basis to streamline communications and ensure a long-lasting partnership. This lack of communication and leadership has been an issue in the past, and this is one of the reasons we're here. We're not searching for a cookie cutter solution, so there's no one size fits all. Instead, we're going to meet with each group and individually figure out what works, what your needs are, and you as a group of citizens, your committee, is going to really decide what the next steps are, right? You may have noticed that we have grouped some of the communities together. Please, that's just preliminary lines that we drew to bring communities together, to consolidate the effort, and hopefully there may be opportunities for economies of scale, which should result in a lower cost from the maintenance standpoint, as well as administrative standpoint. But those lines are not final. Nothing is really final. You're really eventually going to determine what the area looks like, who's going to be in and who's going to be out. What we anticipate are no fast outcomes here. No decisions will be made tonight or anytime soon for that matter, but rather a steady progress through multiple workshop meetings where you really will be leading that process and the decisions being made. We will need the creation of a citizens committee so we can streamline that communication between us, the city, and you. And for that, we need volunteers. At the end of the presentation, we have an email for Danielle, and it's very important that you volunteer because we definitely need volunteers for that. That is the #1 priority of today's meeting. We will assist you by providing information that you can share with other residents, that you can recruit for future meetings. Participation is key. I believe last I counted, we have maybe 15 people here tonight. And well, there are about, I believe, over 400 parcels in this team. So clearly we need greater participation in order to make any decisions. We'll continue to provide online and printed materials that you can share with others and provide additional information at every meeting along the way. Ultimately, we're going to vet the solutions and work with the city on preparing cost estimates for your review, run some rates, and from that, we expect that's going to take multiple times. We're going to go through that budget iterations, and we're going to work with the committee until we find a spot where we can achieve consensus. Consensus is very important because most likely there are many, many options, but one of them involves the formation of a Melrose district, right? A new district that can actually capture the improvements on the outside and capture the gamut of all the things you want to do. For that, that requires a 2/3 approval of the registered voters inside of that boundary, right? 2/3 is a very, very high threshold. So frankly, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of involvement and participation before we can get to that point. But that's why we need a committee, a citizens committee so bad for this process. Tonight, my presentation will go over a few things like where your property tax dollars are going. We'll do an overview of the special districts division, a review of this proposed geographical area that we're going to start with, subject to changes. We're going to share some of the findings from the survey. Some of you did take the survey and provided some really good input. What the possible outcome may look like, and really discuss a little bit what the level of desired citizen involvement may be. And of course, next steps. So with that said, I'll move on to the slides. So as you can see, and I had it earlier on the screen, but we have drawn the boundaries for the moment to include Pacific Breeze and California Lighthouse. We've done that because one of the things that is not being taken care of is anything on the exterior. So anything on Ventura is currently not being maintained by either assessment district, right? Nothing on 7th is being maintained by either assessment district. The interior or the entrances, yes, that is being maintained in the assessment district. But other than that, the outside is in really bad shape. It is managed and maintained by the general fund at this moment. And so that is currently on a once-a-year schedule. What that means is that they'll go and, maybe you'll see them there today. You're not going to see them on Ventura or 7th for another year. Imagine if that's how you did your lawn at your house. It's just not going to look really good, right? So that's the reason why we drawn this boundary this way, also along 9th Street, hoping to capture some of that and provide some sort of a block where when you arrive to Pacific Breeze or California Lighthouse, you have a full gamut, a full area around your community that looks nice, right? That is being properly maintained at a high level. And it really is for the value of your homes, right? To increase and maintain that value. I'm going to go over the assessment districts real quick. One of the things you need to know is that California Lighthouse and Pacific Breeze, these two communities, the reason you have an assessment district there is because that was required of the developers back in 1991 for Lighthouse and in 2000 for Pacific Breeze as a condition of development. In other words, the city and the developer agreed that in order for the developer to build these homes or condos, they will need to, the maintenance of the improvements in the outside and the inside will need to be paid from assessment district funds. That means an item and a charge that you pay in addition to everything else on the tax bill that everybody else pays, right? So from the very beginning, the city really did not have it in the budget. It was not supposed to pay for any maintenance of any of those improvements inside and surrounding your community. So it's important to know that you're not unique. There are many, many communities in Oxnard that were set up this way. And so currently what has happened for California Lighthouse, starting with that, they have no inflator. So when you look at California Lighthouse documents, there's no provision for that assessment amount of $75 to increase. The amount has been the same since 1991, and that's $74 a year. Everything you'll see on my slides is a yearly amount except when noted as monthly, right? So $74 a year in 1991 is very different than today. And what has happened is the costs have been increasing, and the city, obviously with the assessment district money, is not able to keep up. And therefore you have a service level F. F is the absolute lowest level of service you can have. That means they'll do trimming once a quarter. There's no trash pickup, no debris pickup, and things like that. So California Lighthouse is really not in good shape. The city cannot increase that charge in any way without a vote. So we're really not able to do much with that, and not much the city can do about it unless you vote to increase that amount, which is some of the topics and possible solutions we'll talk about tonight. I want to point something out for you. The estimated fund balance for California Lighthouse at the end of this fiscal year, so June 30 of 2021, should be around $22,000, right? But if you compare the annual cost, $20,000 for a level F, to the maximum assessment, which is $19,000, what that tells us is that currently at the very, very max of your assessment, which is 74 and cannot go up, the city can only provide a level F service, right? So there's really no place to go. The moment we get our next increase of water rates, well, I'm not really sure how much we can maintain this district and how much we can do with it. This $22,000, this sort of reserve, it's going to be hit. And so California Lighthouse is in a situation where something needs to be done. Otherwise, the city may not be able to continue to maintain it. Pacific Breeze. And again, by the way, I want to mention that this is again for the inside improvements only. Everything on the exterior, which is outside of your neighborhood, the medians, the parkways, the perimeter, everything outside is not being maintained by the assessment district anymore. So everything we're talking about here on this slide is the interior improvements, the inside, which is really mostly the entrance and a couple of little parts. And I'll show that a little later. Pacific Breeze is in better shape. It has a maximum of $300 and is charging $75 at the moment. Costs are relatively low, and it has a good fund balance. Pacific Breeze has been invited to this meeting in order to consider the possibility of capturing that Ventura, which I believe is the road that you share in common, right? The exterior improvements. So that's where we are today with the assessment districts, and clearly California House of the two communities is in greater need. Something we hear a lot is, where is the money going, right? You obviously are paying property taxes and you pay quite a bit of it. And so I just want to bring this slide. I got it from the city manager's presentation to council in September. It is important to know that, yes, when you pay that 1% property tax, which is based on the value of your home, which is a very large amount on your tax bill, the large majority of the money is not going to the city. There's nothing the city can do about this. This is just the way it works. So it's not like it can be changed, right? The city gets about 17 cents on the dollar when you pay that 1% tax. The schools, the county, all the districts are getting most of it, right? So I'm going to break that down a little further. City has about $140 million general fund budget. And so what I did is I went into the database from the county and actually looked at the parcels and properties in California Lighthouse and Pacific Breeze, and looked at what the actual city share is. There's a tax rate area, there's a percentage that goes with that. And as you can see, it's about 17 cents on the dollar, which is about the average for the whole city. In some communities, you go as high as 18 cents, but 17 cents is about right. And then I actually sample properties in your communities. I'm actually get a pointer here that I haven't done that. There we go. These values here are what the county has for you. That means that it's really possibly not market value. If you have bought a home and it hasn't been sold in many years, then yes, it's going to be a little bit behind market value, right? But this is what the county uses. So if you look at a home in California Lighthouse worth $350,000 according to the county, the 1% tax of that is $3,500. Again, there are other items in the tax bill, right? There's the assessment district there. There's other measures and things that are in there. All of those other things, most likely, most of them have strings attached. So the funds coming from that are going somewhere else. There's purpose for them. They were approved under certain conditions. So we look for the 1% as the large majority of the money that the city is receiving, right, to fund their operations. So there's $3,500 in this particular home, or I believe it's a condo. The city share of that, the 17 cents, is $617, right? So from $3,500, $600 goes to the city. Of that, the police and fire, well, police is going to take $278 of that. Fire department about $90. All that remains from the $3,500 is $249, which is about $21 a month. That's what remains really for the large majority of the city operations other than fire and police. The police and fire costs combined in the city of Oxnard is about 65% of the general budget, which is very normal, by the way. So that's not unique to Oxnard. Most cities in California run between 55 and 70, somewhere in there. So you're you're right in there. Unfortunately, it just lives very little for the remainder operations of the city. Pacific Breeze, I sample a home. The highest one there that I could find was $538,000. That property pays 1% tax of $5,300, of which $931 will go to the city. But then we take the police and fire out at $419, $136, and only $376 remain from the initial $5,300 paid in property taxes, the 1% tax only, obviously. That's about $31 a month. So when we look at those amounts, we can compare that to the average electricity bill or water bill or internet, and clearly these amounts are really not very large compared to a utility bill for what you get from the city, or should be getting, right? That's a better word, I should say. Now, let's break this down a little further so we can give you a better picture of that general fund budget of $140 million. So as I mentioned, police takes about $63 million of that. Fire takes about $20 million. There's about $57 million remaining in the general fund for the rest of the city. Well, you have your administrative groups like the attorney's office, the clerk's office, the manager's office, billing, finance, HR, debt service. That's about $23 million out of that 57. Then you have libraries and community development and other things. That's about 21 million. What's left for what we are talking about tonight and what we're working with Jerry on, which will be parks, landscaping, sidewalks, tree trimming, streets, basically the infrastructure inside and around your community. It's about $13 million for the whole public works department. Realize that that's $13 million left through the whole city, right? That's for the whole city. So let me go over that and see how that works. Well, we consider that the city has about 453 miles of streets, right? That require about $11 million of maintenance just to stay as is. That doesn't really improve your streets any better. It really needs about $50 million. It's very, very expensive to maintain streets. I'll give you a few examples here. If you look at some numbers I got from the city from 2017, and we use what we call the thin maintenance overlay. This is where you're maintaining a road with just putting about an inch of asphalt on the top. You're not actually replacing anything, just maintaining it. If you look at La Colonia, which is a community there, it costs about $1.3 million to do that 1 inch overlay. If you look at something like Victoria Avenue from the south end to the north end, it's about $1.4 million. So you can see how a public works department funded by $13 million with as many needs as they have, well, the costs are very, very high. It's very hard for them to really get anything done with that kind of funding. The city has about 53 parks to maintain for a total of 370 acres. It's got about 48 city sports courts that are in need of restoration for about $4 million. It's got about 129 acres of landscaping to do on the medians and parkways. This is the stuff on the major roads on Ventura, 7th, and so on. Along with 56,000 trees to maintain. 1,100 of those trees are currently dying or dead and need to be removed. Those trees that the city is maintaining with the general fund money, they're currently on a 60-year trimming schedule. That's just not real. You really can't maintain trees on a 60-year schedule, which is what's actually happening because they don't have enough funding, is the trees are dying, the trees are falling in the middle of the road, limbs are falling. And so it's more of a triage mode. That's what really 60 years is. It's really not a real plan. Though you have $163 million worth of trees in the city, unfortunately, there's not enough money to maintain those assets. When you have a chance, and when we post this to the website, by the way, we will share this link to the Oxnard 5-year capital improvement program, which was presented to council in April 20. I think it's a really good document for you to read. In our website, I took some pages and it's on the main page for you. The link is there and it will be in the slides when we share these with you. But I think it has a lot of pictures, not a lot of words. It's a really fast, easy read that I highly recommend that you take the moment to look at so that you have a better understanding what the needs of the city are. There's about $470 million worth of improvements and work that the city needs with a lot of deferred maintenance over the years. So really not in great shape, not in a great position financially. Measure E is a sales tax increase that was passed recently. And so this has come up a lot. I heard some projections from 30 million to 45 million. I do not know what the actual number of sales tax increase will be. I know that given COVID, sales tax has not been good for anybody. So whatever Measure E produces is going to take a little bit of time to get there. And I know that according to the slide on the screen from my presentation by the city manager, there's a lot of things riding on Measure E, right? A lot of needs. Yes, the maintenance of the trees along and landscaping on those medians and parkways is listed here as something that could happen with Measure E. And yes, you can certainly wait for Measure E to pan out. That could take years. It could be sooner. I really do not know. But I feel like the purpose of these meetings is for you to meet with your neighbors, organize, and determine if you want to actually take control of those improvements yourself, the exterior, the interior. And even if we form a solution for you that had a term, right? Something that went 5-7 years, that can be done. There's a lot of things that can be done. The decision really needs to be made by you of if you're going to wait for Measure E money or if you're going to do something prior to that. Because in the meantime, what's happening with California Lighthouse, for example, there's not enough funding there to maintain that in the interior. And the exterior is already in very, very bad shape. So the exterior is really, really bad already as is, and it's going to get worse before Measure E money kicks in. So that's sort of the purpose of this effort.
Pablo, I have a brief question for you. Can you clarify what you mean by exterior and interior?
Very
because
good.
Interior, inside the walls, we take care of that. So
yeah,
if you could clarify that, would be very helpful.
Yeah, you know what? I have people on the phone may not be able to see this, but I'll describe it for you. I'll use Pacific Breeze. I have it here on the screen, right? So this diagram that I have on the screen right now comes from our website, the data center. A lot of information there that you should definitely take a look at. The same is the case with the city. They have this very same thing available. And what this shows is that for Pacific Breeze, when we say interior, we mean things inside along the inside of the fence or the perimeter along 7th Street, not outside on 7th, not on the medium, not on the parkway. If you look over here for the same for Pacific Breeze, these trees along here, which are on 7th, right, along the 7th corridor, but not on the outside where 7th is. So interior is assessment district maintained and paid for. I'll actually show you, do I have California Lighthouse? Yeah, I have California Lighthouse on the screen. So for California Lighthouse, you can see, Glenn, yeah, you do maintain a lot of stuff at the very middle of the California Lighthouse, but this sort of interior perimeter of California Lighthouse is maintained by the assessment district. Same
Basically, it's the area between the sidewalk and our wall.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, the stuff on the medium and the parkways, all that, that's not part of the assessment district. And for California Lighthouse, they may look about the same because it's an F level, but for Pacific Breeze, you should see a difference. The stuff at the inside should be prettier than the stuff on the medium because they have a higher level of service than the general fund is providing. I hope that's helpful. And again, these maps are all available in our website as well as the city's website. So some of the questions we get and some of the comments, we heard this a lot. I've been working with the city for a long time. I hosted a lot of meetings. I have met a lot of you in person, and I hear a lot of stories, and I know that there are a lot of problems with the city and the services that you're getting. I am well aware of that, and I see them myself. So, you know, I've driven through all of Oxnard. I know where the trash is. I know about the trees. I know everything. But I do want you to make a distinction here tonight and for this effort that what we're trying to do is to find a solution that whatever comes out of these meetings is going to be implemented, managed by the Special Districts Division, not the city. So the city is a very large organization with a lot of departments. It's really hard to reach somebody. You don't have that problem with this division. You see the org chart here. There's not that many people in it. I'm pretty sure if you call Jerry, you're going to get a response. You may not get the one that you want to hear back, right? She may not be able to help you, but she will get back to you. And so we want to make sure that whatever comes out of these meetings, you have somebody that you can hold accountable. And that's why our proposal is that whatever happens here is going to be managed by this group, very small group dedicated to taking care of that for you. The proposed geographical area right now includes Pacific Breeze and California Lighthouse. Again, that is subject to change. We can expand that, we can contract that. It really is ultimately down to you as you meet with each other and you form this committee and you knock on doors, really, that's what's going to determine what you're getting, how much that's going to cost, and really who's going to be a part of it. So right now it's just a starting point. We did that again to try to capture improvements on Ventura, improvements along 9th, and improvements along 7th. And when I used the word improvement here, by the way, this was a question last night, we referred to public improvements. An improvement for us is landscaping, sidewalks, trees, streets resurfacing. It doesn't mean that it's getting any better. In fact, we will call that's an improvement, even if it's in very, very bad shape. That's still a public improvement, right? So I just want to make that distinction. This is another picture of the proposed area, which I think for you is very easy, is all of Pacific Breeze and all of California Lighthouse, okay? We did a survey. Some of you took the survey. And so we want to share with you tonight what we heard from you in regards to what matters to you. Public safety, as in many, many, many communities, was at the top of the list. So I want to let Danielle kind of talk to you about public safety and homelessness and what can be done about it, and how our process here may not be the best solution for that. So Danielle, back to you.
So both of those items have been very important to every community, which makes sense to me. Of course, public safety would be number one, and then homelessness, you'll see that in communities that are within large cities always. So we are not addressing those two items specifically tonight because the program that we're looking at is something that can be accomplished from volunteers and or funding provided by community members. So public safety, while yes, you could say, well, we all want to pitch in and help fund more public safety, you're not going to get a one-to-one return like you will see for maintenance, landscaping. So if we include in a special tax, say, an amount that's for additional public safety, that doesn't mean that you're going to be assigned a police officer for your community. So that's kind of why we're not including those two items here. We will, in our citizens committee, provide many resources for addressing these items. The Oxnard Police Department has a number of community programs that can be utilized and will definitely help to increase public safety within your community, as well as here you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have the portion of the website for homeless services at the city, and there's a number of resources there where you can call, and if there's been someone who's been displaced, there's contact numbers for you to reach out to people to have them come and help those individuals. So both of those items are something that we understand are important, and we will definitely work on providing resources for. We just aren't going to address them tonight as an overall focus for how this citizens volunteering and or funding can address those items.
All right, thank you, Danielle. So from the survey, the ranking on the screen for those on the phone, we use a numeric system. So the lower the number, the more important that it is to you. So the number one item on top of the list with 59 points is the maintenance of the landscaping outside, what we call the exterior, the mediums, those parkways around your community on Ventura and so on. Second item on the list was street lighting, then maintenance of the streets, maintenance of nearby parks, sidewalks, and the maintenance of the landscaping inside of the community. I've underlined that on the slide, all of them, because other than public safety, we can help you with all of those. That's something that could come out. We could find a solution from these meetings. We also asked about other, and we, this is a summary of the many, many comments we got, but homelessness, as Danielle said, we wouldn't be able to address it here. Car racing and noise pollution is sort of outside of our realm of what we may be able to do, as well as the RVs parked around the community. But the things that were in the other that we can help you with, clearly we can do something about tree maintenance outside the walls. This is the general fund medium parkway trees that are currently on a 60-year schedule, which really is no schedule at all. That's just not sustainable. It's not real. All that means is that you just show up when it's falling on the middle of the road. Litter throughout, that could be captured by this effort, some sort of a cleanup effort, as well as street sweeping. So these are the things we heard from you, from the few people that took the survey. Again, no final decisions are being made. This doesn't mean that this is the list, because we don't really know what any of this costs yet, right? So this is our starting point for you as a committee of citizens working with us on the city to figure out which of these things stay on the list, right? And which ones make sense. We asked the question about, would an HOA be something that you see a homeowners association as a good solution, even if it's a part of it? And here it was sort of a split based on the responses we got. Again, as you meet with neighbors, the response may change, right? So maybe an HOA is something that you want to involve heavily in this effort and have them take over many or some other improvements, and that's perfectly fine. We need to figure all that out as we move along the process. 42% of those that responded were also interested in volunteering in some form, may that be planting trees or doing a trash pickup day. So that's very good to hear, and something that could actually be considered and structured into the program. Earlier, I mentioned levels of service F for California Lighthouse. Please note that our data center has a full description of what these levels of service are, but I wanted to give you a little summary here, because it's important that we know what it means as we work on solutions. We're going to define that with a level of service. We're going to have to assign one in order for us to get a bid from a contractor and actually figure out what it costs, right? A level of service is the best level. It means that you will have somebody mowing the lawn and trimming around every week. A B level of service is every 2 weeks, and a C level of service is every third week. California Lighthouse is currently on an F level of service, which is quarterly, okay? So it's important to know these things. In my recommendation to the committee will be that we get numbers for an A level of service, the best level. And I say that because water increases do not follow any type of inflator. So if we added an inflator to some sort of a Melrose solution or whichever additional funding mechanisms we're going to use, an inflator of 2 or 3% will not keep up with water rate increases. Water rate increases are in the neighborhood of 13%, 26%. You really do not know what's coming, and you have no control over it. So I say we start with A, and then over time know that we will need to come back to the table and make some changes in order to keep the improvements viable. What are the desired outcomes, right? From our perspective, we obviously want to pick up what's already been maintained. Even if it's being maintained at a low level of service, we want to bring that in and actually maintain it at a higher level of service. We know that we want the Special Districts Division to manage this process. We definitely need to add some transparency, some ongoing reporting, some system, a better system of communication between the Special Districts Division and your community members. We want to capture all the improvements in the inside, the outside, and we want to gather your input to this process to figure out what new things you want to add to this effort. There may be things on the list that you want to add that you currently do not have, right? And then ultimately, the most important thing is we need to have a working group, a citizens committee that stays on board for ongoing citizen support and involvement. On the transparency front, this is an issue. We get a lot of questions about, getting copies of reports and things like that. The city has had a very old style, old software for accounting and finance, but currently they are going through the process of upgrading that to a modern system. So we feel strongly that out of this effort, we should be able to create some sort of a dashboard, right? We're all very familiar with the COVID dashboard. We can create that. In whatever items you want to see in there, I'm sure we can structure that so that it can be maintained on an ongoing basis, and you can have access and look at it and see where your money's going and how it's been used, and sort of see what the level of service is and all the information that you need. Some of the things that are possibly new to add, and this is based on what I saw in the survey, things like lighting, sidewalks for California Lighthouse. For Pacific Breeze, I believe sidewalks may be included, maybe, but if it's not, then, it can be included. Street resurfacing, so the maintenance of the roads around that area, street sweeping, the maintenance of nearby parks, any capital improvements that you may need, and maybe some traffic-related capital improvements. So these things can be considered. Again, no final decisions will be made here. This is all for discussion with the Citizens Committee and the city, right? So back to the Citizens Committee. What are we looking for? Well, it really depends. You may have a group of citizens that wants to do replanting. They want to be hands-on, perform events and work with the city on doing actual work like trash cleanup, pickup. That will be okay. We can structure that into the program and consider that into the budget, right? And the calculation of whatever rates and effort we work out of this process. You may have community assets. Meaning people who own companies that can do work, that can help the city. You may have expertise in this community. We don't know. We may have people here that are able to provide some sort of expertise to help the city in many ways, right? And lucky for you, in your particular case, I know of a person that actually has connections with a nonprofit organization and has the possibility of bringing that nonprofit organization, their resources and their effort to bear to help you out and make something great out of this process. And for that, Glenn, if you can unmute yourself, I will pass it on to you. I want to make sure that you share with everybody who you are and what you shared with us about a week or two ago.
Okay. I'm Glenn Noreen. I've been in California Lighthouse community for about 3 years now. I've been designated the lead for the landscaping committee on this CivicMic ReNew Oxnard initiative. And I'd like to just mention a few things about ReNew Oxnard, the economics of it, and what impact it might have for us and where we might go moving forward. First, I'd like to point out that we have a budget for our internal landscaping is actually, I think, very good. We do a very good, I walk the compound. Many of you, I'm sure, see me walking on my daily steps, walking around the compound on the inside and enjoying it because we have very good internal landscaping. We spend about $250,000 on that every year. I walked the entire interior today and counted the number of steps that I needed to take. And then I also counted the steps that I needed to take on 7th and 9th Streets to find out what the difference is in terms of the size of the frontage, interior, and 7th and 9th Streets. And I can tell you that 7th and 9th Streets, when you add them together, are roughly 22% the size of the interior. So you would imply from that, if we're trying to maintain it at the same level as what we're doing internally, it would cost 22% of $250,000, or around $57,000 to maintain 7th and 9th to the degree that we maintain the interior of our building. But the city actually is only, the assessment, the MAD, the Maintenance Assessment District that we're paying taxes to, actually is only getting around $20,000. And of that, the city needs to have some for overhead and other functions. We're basically only left with about $14,000. So rather than being able to maintain the 7th and 9th Streets to the level of what we're doing in the interior, we have less than a third as much money. And there's very little leeway that the city has. The city is restricted from using other funds to help that. With $14,000, there's not very much that they can do. Pablo mentioned that we're at the level F of what in terms of services. If you actually look at the budget for our maintenance and assessment district, it's showing $5,000 for water. I guarantee you, there's no water going out at all right now. If there was water going out, it wouldn't be to any use because we don't have the support in terms of planting, in terms of setting up the irrigation and so forth that would make it work. So we need to come up with some sort of creative solutions in order to get things off center. Aspirationally, I would love it if we could do something like what we see at the Gallery, which is another community. It's up at Victoria and Ventura. If you drive by it, it looks stunning. The difference between the Gallery and California Lighthouse community is that the gallery was just finished building, and it was in the builder's interest to landscape that very nicely. So it looks very good right now. But what happens, I'm sure that when California Lighthouse Community was built, Kaufman and Broad, the developer who did California Lighthouse Community, probably had very nice landscaping here, but they didn't put enough money in the maintenance assessment district to keep it up. It's gone down over time, and we end up where we're at right now. So moving forward, I think it would be wonderful if we could develop a community committee, a local committee, along the lines of what Pablo and Danielle are suggesting, that could look at where we aspirationally want to go. Do we want to look something like the gallery? Do we want to become a model urban landscape? I've spoken with the director of the Santa Barbara Botanical Garden, who's very excited actually about identifying a community like ours to be a model urban landscape with native gardens, native plant gardens. But that's something that is it's an important mission for Santa Barbara Garden to support urban landscaping with native plants. And they don't have a model. They have nobody that's doing it. They've actually offered to give us the plants that we would need to do it. So what I envision is that this committee will come up with an aspirational plan of where we want to go. We could commission an architect, a landscape architect, to think through with us what it would look like. I'm willing, I have to check with my boss on this, but my suspicion is we are willing to actually contribute in a significant way to that. I see this as a major retirement activity for me to get involved in it. But I would see the committee getting together, thinking aspirationally, what do we want this to look like? What are our goals for it? And then sell it internally to our California Lighthouse community, to our neighbors, and also to figure out the degree to which should we go to a Mello-Roos solution? Should we try to go to some sort of solution that relies on our homeowners association to help financially? Some of the other things that we can do to help are we can monitor when the irrigation actually does come online. We can have volunteers monitoring that irrigation. We can have volunteers volunteering to go around and just pick up sections of the trash. I'm doing some of that already. I would be willing, as an example, to choose 7th Street and say, I'm going to be the one who's the volunteer who's going to go across 7th Street on a regular basis and ensure that things are picked up. Once they're actually picked up on a regular basis, people stop throwing things out because it won't look like it's already a trash bin. And also, as we put in the plantings, as the landscaping improves, it will be less of an attraction to people to throw things out. Other things that we can do is we can monitor the public safety. We can monitor graffiti. When we see homelessness in the area that we're uncomfortable with, I envision, so what I envision is it's along the lines of what Pablo and Danielle have been suggesting, but let me give one additional step. I envision in this dialogue process that we have concerning 7th and 9th, we're also going to talk to the city about Ventura. That Ventura stretch looks awful. That is a city responsibility, but it's not I don't think as a homeowner, I don't want to just rely on the city and say that we're going to rely on them to get done. We want to fold the Ventura into a solution as well. So that'd be another thing that the committee would address. I think those are some of the major things that I wanted to touch on. I'm actually really excited that Oxnard is reaching out to the communities to ask them, what do we want and what can we do creatively around this sort of insoluble problem of these MADs were created and they're not working. And I, as a homeowner, feel very uncomfortable saying it's the city's problem because the city doesn't have a way out of it. And it's affecting our home values. It's affecting our community. I think we actually have a wonderful opportunity working with the city to turn things around, improve the landscape attraction of our community. And frankly, it's going to have a significant impact on our property values, as well as just feeling more comfortable when you invite people to come and look at our homes because it looks so awful just driving up. So thank you, Pablo and Danielle, for taking the lead on this. And I'm excited to be part of the solution, I hope. And I'm looking forward to other volunteers joining us on this committee to get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Glenn, so much. And I want to restate that the solution coming out of this effort, like Glenn said, very true, is really going to be led by you. The city and CivicMic cannot make decisions for you because whatever the city is going to do is going to result in some sort of new property taxation, right? May that be a mellow or whatever it may be. And the city cannot implement that without your vote. This concept, and I hear this before, oh, the city's going to raise our taxes. I just want to please feel at ease that after Prop 13, later Prop 218, then Prop 26, it is extremely difficult for the city to raise anybody's taxes. Pretty much everything the city is able to place on the tax roll, on the property tax bill, needs to go to a vote of some sort. Yes, the city may propose something, and your neighbors may vote for it, right? That's a different story. So you may not be happy about that. But the city on its own really cannot raise taxes. So that's why it's so important that you join, you volunteer, you work with Glenn and work with us to figure a solution to this problem, right? And so that's where we are here tonight. Last slide, next steps. So what happens next? Well, if you look here, we need volunteers. If you want to volunteer to be in the committee, please email Danielle at dwood@civicmic.com. You can always go to our homepage. Our email addresses is everywhere, but this post, these slides that you're seeing here tonight, they're going to be available in a couple of days to you, right? You're going to get an email in the middle of the night with a link to a post. That's us. And you'll be able to find this email address, but it's dwood@civicmic.com. That's the number one thing that needs to happen. If we're not able to form a committee, meaning if there's no interest, no participation, we really cannot move forward because these meetings, they cost money. They cost your time. They cost the city money. So we don't want to continue the process unless there is participation. Enough participation to be able to reach out to everybody and sort of gather enough support for whatever solution we decide on, right? So that's the very, very first step. Ultimately, I already told the city, we're not making any recommendation. It's very, very important. We're not recommending that the city form any district, no matter rules or anything, until we can ascertain that if we were to take that out to a vote, it will pass. And we're not doing that. We're never going to initiate those proceedings because it costs money. The city will have to pay another $35,000 to form a district, comes from your funds, right? For something that's going to fail. So no, the whole process here is to work with you and get a solution that you're all happy with, that we can actually count on 2/3 support. So if we need to get more money, if we need to form a district, then we can make sure that it's going to pass and the money and effort is not wasted. If the combination of the solution is something like nonprofit, like Glenn said, HOA, city, or 2 out of 3, whatever it may be, that's okay. We're totally fine with any, there are no predetermined solutions here. You're going to determine this through your input working with the citizen committee. So that's the first step. We're also going to support this committee because there's a lot of information that is very unique, stuff about assessment districts that is complicated. It's not your normal kind of thing. So that's what we're here for, to provide you with flyers, posts, anything you may need to talk to each other and understand the process. We're going to work with you, the committee. We're going to work with the city on preparing these budgets and running through the budgets and doing some pro forma rates. Something that will show you, okay, if we do this, it may cost you an additional X. Very similar to what Glenn did here by estimating it, but we actually get bids, right, from a contractor and so on. And once we have all that, we can meet with you again, run through some of those models, and then refine them. We basically go back and go, okay, they'll do another iteration. You go out, talk to each other, you figure out if there's support or not, and then we just keep changing it until we get that 2/3 support internally before we actually proceed. So that is the process. We have a page dedicated to this program. The link is at the very bottom of the slide. But if you go to the website, and actually just going to go ahead and switch over so I can show you, it's very, very easy. If I can find the link here, here we go. If you go to, any browser, you type civicmic.com. You'll see this first option in the menu is communities. You go down to Oxnard, and that's CivicMic for you, or those on the phone. Given my Puerto Rican accent, that is CIVIC-MIC, Civic, and like mic as in microphone, right? CIVIC-MIC altogether.com. You drop from communities, you see Oxnard. You can see we have a main page, a ReNew Oxnard news, which is everything that is happening in this program, the additional meetings we're going to have, the budgets, everything's going to show in here. That's where you will go most of the time. And you will scroll down to Team 1637. You click in there and you can find all your posts in there. You can also go, and I strongly advise you that you go to the main page and the data center, because there's a lot of information in there, and it's not easy reading, I know, but it's something that you should take your time, maybe read a little bit every day or every couple of days. I wouldn't do it every day, actually. That's too much. But the data center is very, very good. It has all the maps that we showed earlier, the levels of service, right? The A, B, C, D, F. It has sample citations. It has a schedule, what the fund balances look like, lots of reports. The annual reports that are required to be prepared for the assessment districts. And of course, this spreadsheet that shows every district, when it was formed, the rates, the levels of service, what it pays for, and best of all, the maps. This is how you know when what is being taken care of by the assessment district versus what is being taken care of by the general fund. The very, very big distinction again, general fund maintenance is on a once a year schedule, right? Comes from the general fund. It's not very good. That's your mediums or parkways. You can see it throughout the city. If you find an area of the city that looks very pretty in the mediums and parkways, that's because they have a Melrose district that is paying for that. Otherwise, the whole city just looks not very good. And then the assessment district is taking care of the stuff inside. But unfortunately, for California Lighthouse, that's at a level F. Okay, so I think that's all I have for tonight. I guess we go to questions now, right? And I don't see anything on the chat though.
Right, so if anyone has questions, you can feel free to type it into the chat at the bottom of the screen there. If you are on the phone, or we see some of you are in a group setting there, if you would like to just ask your question, or even if you don't have to type it, if you just like to take yourself off of mute and ask a question, please feel free to do so. And we'll try and answer everyone's questions. Is there anyone that had any questions tonight? Okay, well, Alicia, I saw you last night at the last meeting. So let's see, if you determine that the LMD residents support a Melrose district, would it be just the committee members who collect petition signatures to set up a vote, or would others help? How many signatures would be needed?
I will say that's a decision for the committee, right? That's why you have a citizens committee, right? So you're going to have a group of volunteers going to make this committee. We're going to support the committee by providing, the pages, the maybe iPad program to do it, and the committee will figure out how to get those petitions, right? The threshold for us, this is not a property business improvement district where it has by law a defined requirement. The threshold is something for us to feel comfortable about, right? For you, the citizen committee, to feel good about that. Yes, there's enough support. So ideally, I would think you would want to clear that 2/3 hurdle on a petition level, so that if we went to send ballots, we will feel like, okay, most likely we're going to get that. There's no actual prescribed by law requirement for an actual number. So, but we know that the vote is 2/3. And I'll go over that real quickly just to make sure everybody knows. If it's a mellow, right? Again, we're talking about one single possible solution here, a Melrose district, which is a special tax. If it's a mellow, the registered voters are the ones who are going to cast the ballot. And I'm going to repeat that because that's very, very important. If there is a part of the solution that is a Melrose, right? We're going to form one of these things, and it's going to have a budget, and it's going to have an amount that you're going to pay. It's probably going to replace, most likely, it will replace your existing assessment district. So Pacific Breeze Maintenance Assessment District and California Lighthouse will most likely go away. We will remove that because the assessments are very outdated and very clunky and not very helpful to us anymore. That's why we're doing a mellow, because it can do many, many things, including the outside stuff that you could not do with an assessment district, right? So we're not double taxing, but rather replacing what you have with a new district, a Melrose, right? So the boundaries of that, so whatever that may be. So if we said, okay, Pacific Breeze dropped off and it's only California Lighthouse, let's just say, right, for this example, then the boundaries of the Mellow is California Lighthouse. Only people, registered voters with an address, a registered voter address inside of California Lighthouse are going to get a ballot. If you're a property owner and you're renting your property in California Lighthouse, in this example, then you should also register with your home address there at California Lighthouse, because your renter is going to get this ballot, right? Then only the ballots returned are tabulated. If a ballot is not returned, it's not counted. And whatever is returned, we count that and we look for 2/3 support. That's how that works for that, right? Again, that may be just a part of the solution. There may be the HOA involvement doing something, and the Glen may be able to pull this off with a nonprofit. So maybe there's a 3-part solution, maybe a 4-part solution. I don't know. But that's what a mellow will look like. And it doesn't have to be a mellow. But most likely, if you're capturing the outside and doing anything like that, and the long list that I saw, mellow is your best solution.
Thank you, Pablo. Very helpful. I believe that maybe that Elke group may have had a question in there. If you'd like to unmute, if you did have a question. There you go.
Hi, we would like to know why the water is turned off on Ventura Road. Because all the bushes, the plants died, and it was beautiful before. But there's absolutely no water.
And you're telling us you're spending $5,000 a year on water, and we're not getting it.
Let me step in for just a moment. The $5,000 is supposed to be spent on 7th and 9th, not Ventura. Ventura is completely a city responsibility.
Right here. Yep.
But the water's not on 7th and 9th either. It doesn't look like anything's being done on 7th and 9th at all. I'm not pointing fingers. The city doesn't have much money to do this, but if they turned on the money, it would be, if they turned on the water, nothing would grow except weeds right now anyway.
No.
Yeah, here's the map on the screen. I don't know, I hope you can see it.
Yeah.
So this is California Lighthouse, and you have Ventura here. You can see the assessment district is not paying for anything there in either of these 2 maps, right? So
Okay.
yes, Ventura is general fund money and not looking so good. Go ahead, Jerry.
With regards to 7th and 9th, if the irrigation is off, then I will send out my inspector once again to look and see if maybe a transient or even somebody from the Parks Department turned off the backflow, because I do know that our irrigation timers for 7th and 9th are set up to be watering 7th and 9th. So I will take care of that tomorrow.
Okay, can you tell us what the time is? We can go out and check to see if it's watering, but
Sure.
You're charging us $5,000 a year for water, and we haven't gotten it.
So that's the budget number. You would only be charged for the amount of money that's actually spent on water. And if there are funds left over, that would go into your reserve balance for other necessary items. So you are not being charged for any services that you wouldn't be receiving if the water is off. That money is still sitting there for California Lighthouse residents. So I will make note of that, and I will let you all know, I'll let your HOA know tomorrow what those watering times are, and if that backflow had been turned off.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Glenn,
All
this
the
picture is
bushes
from,
are dead.
sorry?
All the bushes are dead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So this picture is from April 2019. So all these this is all
No,
dead
it's
now,
worse.
right?
Much worse.
Okay.
All the agapanthus died. And 2 years ago, they were still beautiful.
Right.
Now we have only dirt. It looks, Colonia looks better than California Lighthouse.
Yeah, this is all general fund maintained. And when I looked at their budget, that's maintained by the Parks Division. And they are, from what I'm being told, is a once a year schedule. Meaning if you see somebody working on any of this, you won't see them for another year. Their budget for the whole Parks group is about $1 million, somewhere in there, not that much. And I earlier explained how many acres of parkways and parks they have to maintain. So it's just, you really can't do much with that kind of money. They just can't keep up. It's just
which is Pablo, which is kind of how we got here. So, you know, a lot of community members were reaching out saying that it looks horrible driving into our communities. Why does it look this way? Well, because a portion of those areas are maintained by the general fund, which the general fund does not have any money to maintain them. So in essence, they're not maintained. And then residents said, well, how much will it cost for us to maintain them? How much, you know, what can we do? Can we put drought tolerant plants? How can we help this situation? And that's how we got here. Right. So.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Glenn.
I do envision, go ahead.
Drought tolerant plants, they need water too. And now there is absolutely none. It's bone dry, the entire Ventura Road area.
Right. That's why we're saying that part of the solution would most likely require multiple avenues. So if you install drought tolerant plants, say Glenn can use his resources to get that done, someone still has to pay for the water because the general fund can't fund that. So that's why Pablo was talking about the formation of a Melrose district that would have to be funded by residents to pay for that water. And if you don't want that, that's not something that you want, then that's okay too. The city is okay with leaving it how it is. That's an option, but we're just trying to present all the options and let you as citizens, community members come together and make a decision on what you want to do.
Yeah, and if you have that scenario, which is very unique to you, by the way, because Glenn is here and you're very lucky to have him. This is our 4th meeting and we haven't had anybody in any community that has that connection and actually that desire to be involved, to actually lead something like this, where he's going to bring an organization with their resources to bear and help you. So let's say this is what we don't know really where we're going to be until we have these meetings with you and you all meet together and figure out who can do what and what the solutions are. But let's say Glenn is able to bring in this nonprofit organization and all we need from the city is water for the exterior, right? For that medians or parkways. Well, if that's all we need, we don't even need a Melrose for that. If you have an HOA, which I believe you do, already we have cases where the HOAs are paying for water, right? So maybe that's the way to do it. I'm not saying that's the only way, but that's a possibility. So there could be a sort of a HOA does something, nonprofit does something, city does something through Jerry's group. That's what needs to be worked out. So I don't want you to get hung up on any definitive answers here because there are none. These are just ideas. We're brainstorming, and that's what this process is going to be like. And from it, we'll learn that you hate this one thing, right? That's what we're going to learn. We don't want that. Okay, fine. How can we do it with something else, right?
Pablo, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can we get an accounting of where the $19,551.70 is spent every year?
Yeah, Jerry can provide that. In fact, one of the things I want to do for the future, right now they're going through like I mentioned, finance is going through a change of their software, which is great because right now to get reporting is kind of complex. It's really, I got these reports from Jerry and it's like, what is this? In the future, I want to create a dashboard, something really easy where this is updated automatically, right? And you can get those numbers on an ongoing basis, but Jerry can get that. Absolutely.
Okay.
And also we want to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
It's okay. I was just going to say, you can also access the engineer's report for all landscape maintenance districts on the special districts website or at the data center, I believe.
Yep. We have all that.
Jerry,
and that does have the complete budget for each year.
Yeah, that's for the whole district. We're spending in our special district you guys are getting $19,500 a year, and we have no idea where it's being spent. We could spend that whole $19,000 on water, and it'd be a significant improvement over what we have today.
So that within that engineer's report, there is a specific page that is dedicated to your specific assessment district that does show where the budgeted dollars go every year. And I will, there you go. Pablo just pulled it up, or pulled an example of one up.
Ignore this. This level C is what it used to be until January 1st. So it's currently F. It was level C until now. But apart from that, this should be accurate. You can see the contractor maintenance for, this is California Lighthouse.
Okay.
And it's the map that we show here. So for this in green, for this here, okay?
Okay.
Or that, going back there, where did I have it? Right here. This is all coming from our data center, by the way. All this is available to you. And there's a post there for you that has this. The contractor maintenance is 9,000, but that went up, which is why you're at F, right? You know the number top of your head, Jerry, what the new number is?
I don't off the top of my head.
But it went up. I can find it, but I'll see if I can get it before the end of the call, okay? Because I have it. And you can see the water here again. This is a budget. If you don't use the water, you don't use the water, right? So that all it means is that your fund balance at the end of the year is greater than expected. And then you have all these costs here. This is city overhead. And you can sort of go through this and figure out, and in fact, in this district, you're currently getting a general fund contribution of $4,000, right? So you're getting some help from the general fund. That's how we get to 19,000. But as I showed on my slide earlier, you're really on that moment of you can't really go get any worse. I mean, it can only get worse, right? Because your maximum assessment allow is this $19,000 a year. And the costs you can see are really 23, but the general fund is funding 4 of that to the general fund contribution. So you're really there at F, not a lot of room here to play.
Yeah, but $6,000 is administrative expenses.
Yep, and that
you're glossing over that.
No, I'm not glossing over that. Okay, let me address that because I don't want to gloss over anything. That's the last thing I want to do. Okay, government. Okay, I can tell you by experience working with every city. We work with over 150 of them in the state. It is the worst administrative thing you can ever do, right? It's very expensive. Lots of overhead. These numbers are calculated through an overhead allocation plan that they have. This is direct, indirect costs. Jerry get these numbers from these other consultants that spread the cost through the city. They give it to us and it gets into this budget. This is why for other meetings I have mentioned that an HOA may do better at running this show than the city, because an HOA in theory, being, citizens, volunteers, and things like that, will save administrative costs. Government is very, very expensive. Yes, no doubt about it. You should never let government run anything for you. They're not a private enterprise. They're not making money. They run on taxes. That's the way it is. Very, very inefficient. Absolutely.
Mike and Elka, I have this spreadsheet. I will share it with you.
Okay.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
And
I'm very
anyone,
happy you are involved.
anyone can email me as well at jerry.cooper@oxnard.org, and I can provide any of the information as well.
And just to add, I think ideally what we're looking for from the Citizens Committee is a group of individuals who will stay involved. So who will meet with the city, maybe mid-year each year, and then so twice a year to see how funds are being spent, to see if there's any changes that can be made. We would have a liaison who worked with Jerry to report things like, hey, there's water running off the side of the sidewalk here, and that's part of our budget. Things that just, if someone doesn't report it, or if it gets called into Public Works Department and not Jerry specifically, it can't be handled. It may, but most likely won't be handled the same manner that it would if someone was speaking directly to Jerry's division.
We don't see any more questions on the chat. You want to try the phone, people on the phone?
Yes, anyone on the phone, if you are on mute. Oh, I'm sorry, what is it? *8?
*6.
*6, I'm sorry. I could not think of that. You can hit *6 if you have a question to remove yourself from mute on the phone, or anyone else wants to type in the chat. I am looking at my emails here and I don't see any volunteers yet. Of course, I already have Glenn on the hook, so I know I can count on him, but if there's anyone else, please make sure to email me if you'd like to be part of the Citizens Committee to make decisions going forward, whatever that may be.
We all complain, but nobody likes.
So participation in this process is extremely important, as you can see. In order for you all to make a decision, we definitely need more than 14 participants. And so that's why we need this committee to go door to door. Even if they don't show up at a meeting, we need to hear from them through the committee, right? I know that you're not going to get 400 people to attend, but God, I will hope that you can get at least, 80 people, maybe 100 to participate in a future meeting and at least get their input. We can hear from them. We know what they want and we know what they're willing to pay for and how they like to have the structure. And really, there's nothing Danielle and I can do better. We cannot do this better than you can there. You know your neighbors, you know your situation. What's important is that you communicate what you learn here today, share it, and please volunteer. Have people, if you cannot volunteer, then share it so maybe others can do that. I really feel that there's opportunity here, particularly in this group. I'm the most hopeful for this group because you have Glenn. And so of all the meetings, I know you can do this. Absolutely. I 100% believe it. But it's going to take time and we're here to help you. So hang in there. I know it could look a little grim, and then the process is slow. Let me give you a little timeline. Even if we were, let's say it takes us 6 months to get to the point where everybody agrees on something and it requires some sort of a Melrose district to be formed. Let's say that's August, September. Well, the formation of that will take another 6 or 8 months, right? Okay.
Melrose, it's totally out of question.
I know you say that. Then I need you to meet with your HOA to make sure they're going to be able to contribute to the improvements on the exterior, right, outside. Otherwise, all that stuff that you were talking about, that the plants are dying, the bushes, they will continue to die.
Just give us water.
I'm sorry?
Turn the water on. Turn the water on. That will help.
Well, you need funding for the water. So
Yeah.
right now there's no funding. Your district does not fund water for that.
Let me ask you this question. Can we eliminate the district and let the HOA be responsible?
Yes. Yes, and we did that. So in 2017, was it, Jerry? So when I worked on we performed an audit of the whole thing, right? The whole program. And out of that, I want to say we found about 19 districts. And in fact, we have one that we're eyeing as why do we even have a district, right? 19 of them that either all they were paying for was in the exterior, which is really not allowed by the law anymore. Many didn't have any money to pay for anything. They were below F, right? Where you almost are, right? We actually made that proposal. We went out and said, hey, let's eliminate these districts because the city really can't provide any service with the money that it's getting. Why continue to charge? And we did. We eliminated 19 districts. If the HOA wants to pick this up, absolutely we can do that. We can do pretty much anything as long as we all agree on it and we can provide a path for that. Yes, there will be some documents like an agreement that the HOA is going to have to sign with the city because they'll be maintaining items on the public right away. So there's certain things that need to be done. Nothing is impossible. So if you don't want an HOA, that's perfectly fine. Let's not get hung up on that. Let's figure out what is it that you want this to look like, right? What are you willing to fix and improve, make it look better? What do you not want to have happen, and then figure out what's the best solution for that. And that's perfectly fine.
I suggest to the California Lighthouse community that we hold that our next step is to hold another landscape committee meeting to address this.
Okay.
ReNew Oxnard and how to approach it. And I have some proposals of where we go. As I've said before, I'm willing to dedicate significant personal resources to this to make it happen. And Pablo and Danielle, I would like to follow up with you too, to bounce some ideas off of you in terms of successful engagement strategies.
That's right.
So I'll talk to you later about that.
Very good. Question on the board from Alicia is a vote on Melrose a question, a part of a typical public election, or will it be ballots returned to MBS or the city? So pretty much for there's nothing at all that I ever done where we have ballots in my whole 30 years of doing assessment districts, business improvement districts, Melrose districts, water rates, sewer rates, trash rates, pretty much name it. We have never, ever, ever received ballots in our office, in our possession. That's not how it works. It goes to the city clerk's office, right? And so these ballots are either a special election, which is called a mail election, that mail ballot election. That means that these ballots are going back to the city clerk's office, or this election, if it was a mail, will be under they're handled by the county under your normal process when you consolidate the vote with that ongoing election already. So meaning you can join the next November ballot and put this in it. That's how it works. So there are very specific rules on how all this works. In fact, way too many rules. So which makes it too complicated and too costly, to be honest. So yes, an HOA could do this much easier and better, I will imagine, and cheaper.
Well, Pablo, I can just give you an example. Our landscapers went out and started trimming the hedge, and the city, whoever is your contractor, called us and said, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that." But they weren't doing it, so we did it on our own.
I know, and you're not alone. I heard these stories, and I know the city has policies on, and I think it's probably related to safety and liability issues, right? I imagine, but I do know of many residents who have taken it upon themselves to trim trees, things like that. And, it's unfortunate. That's what we're trying to avoid, right? We're trying to fix that.
And that's still just a Band-Aid. I mean,
Yeah.
we're hoping to get a program here that is set in place where the city and if it's the HOA in this case have an agreement so everyone knows that this is happening. And when it doesn't happen, you as community members know who to go to say, we have this program set up. How come it's not getting done? This is what we're paying for. This is what it should look like. So I would assume even if the HOA ends up handling all of this, that you still would want members of your community to stay involved, working with the HOA to make sure that it's being done, which from the inside of your community, it looks like they have been doing that. So.
Yep. Okay. So next steps, we'll talk a little bit with Glenn. Hopefully we will hear, Danielle needs to hear from you. Okay. And so if you don't want to volunteer,
someone to help Glenn.
My advice is if you're in this call and you're not able to volunteer, I know there are reasons for that, then convince your neighbor to do so. Somebody who was not at the meeting, go ahead and buy them cookies, give them something, make them happy, make them join, right? Because we need volunteers. We need more than Glenn. Ideally, we're looking for 3 to 5 people, enough that this is going to be a lot of work here, like a lot of knocking on doors, having meetings, working through the information, and it really is unfair for Glenn to carry the whole workload there. And you're very lucky to have him, by the way. So treat him good.
Glenn is wonderful. Thank you, Glenn.
Absolutely.
And come by tomorrow and show me the sheep.
Yeah. All right, Danielle, up to you.
Okay, we want to thank all of you for joining us. And once again, DWood, DWOOD at CivicMic.com. If you'd like to volunteer in any capacity, please just feel free to email me and we can start this group moving forward. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.